mention the interlude engine.
One of the key elements of design is space. Space is the area provided for a particular purpose. There are two types of space, positive and negative. Positive space refers to the space of a shape, representing the subject matter, whereas negative space is the open space around the subject matter. From a typical passerby, a city is filled with objects. But when you apply the elements of design, you'll really understand that a city is actually space encompassing all of the objects, holding them together in place. Space doesn't just have to be the sky above us or the air surrounding us. Space can also be the amount of space between text and graphics on a document. When someone creates a document, they typically think that the more information, the more text and graphics that they place on a page, the better it will be. But the real trick is finding the right balance, taking away but adding just enough. In order to do this, there are a few things you want to keep in mind. The first being margins. Margin is the space between the text and the outside of your page. There are 4 margins on your document: the left margin, the right margin, the top margin, and the bottom margin. You can see here that the purple and the pink lines outline where your margin is. If you're creating a newsletter or a magazine, you typically want your outside margin to be a little bit thicker than your inside margin. This being because most people read a magazine with their hands on the outside of the pages, so you want to have enough space so that the viewer's fingers aren't covering up any important text on the outside. One way of increasing or decreasing your margins is by going up to Layout, Margins and Columns, and either selecting up or down on your margins. The next thing is leading. Leading is the space between lines of text. You can increase or decrease your leading by coming over to your character box and going to leading. Right now my leading is set to an 18 point, so I can decrease that. I'll decrease it down to 14 to show you what it used to look like. This is what it originally looked like, so comparing this to the bottom text down here, which is the 18 point, you can see that the text up here, it just seems kind of scrunched and it's not as easy to read as the bottom part. So leading is very important when creating a document. You want to make sure that the reader has enough space between each line so that their eye can smoothly go down the page. So I'm going to increase that back up to 18. Okay. The next thing I'm going to talk about is alley. And an alley is the space between a column. So in this case, our column is between the text and the graphic, but you can also have 3 columns of text. And what you want to pay attention to is just having enough space so that the reader doesn't, combine the two or get mixed up. You just want to have enough space so that they can look at the page and clearly read down it without having any distractions. Finally, the last thing that I want to talk about, and that I would suggest for you to do on any document that you create, is to divide your page up into sections. Usually I go by thirds, so here's a section, here's another section, and here's my third section. And I would also do this horizontally, so 1, 2, and 3. By doing so, you're going to create 4 corners in the middle of your page. These 4 corners are very important because when a viewer looks at the page, these are typically where they look to first. So if you have anything important, you want to place it in those corners. This also allows you to space out your document in a way to allow more white space, which is what our whole objective is to create more white space. So those are a few key items to keep in mind when you're creating a document. It really is just a balance between your text and your white space, and there's really no technical formula that you can follow. So just try a few different things and always remember to be open to more white space.
I have your attention as I mention the interlude engine.